Okay, so we welcome uh, all of you who joined today for this very relevant topic, that is relevance of uh, research design in socio-legal research. So I'm very much thankful to my colleagues, Dr. Kalpana and Dr. Amrinder, for arranging this very talk. And it's a pleasure to meet Professor Ratan Singh virtually. I think we will meet in person also. So let me introduce Professor Ratan Singh. He did his LLB, LLM, and PhD from Guru Nanak Dev University, Amritsar. And he has been a LLM gold medalist from the same university. And there is a very, noticeable thing that he did his post-graduation in different disciplines like police administration, sociology, political science, public administration, which is a very, very rare phenomenon. So apart from that, he has also took various administrative positions, and he published his book, which I must mention, on legal research methodology with LexisNexis. Apart from that, he has also published book on socioeconomic offense in India, admissibility of scientific evidence, law and media, electronic system, democracy, laws and issues, milestones of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar on the roadmap of the Indian Constitution. And he has also accredited with various projects, that is right to education, some pitfalls and policies of government, subordinate judiciary in India under stress and strain. So he has been very much well versed with the research, particularly research methods. And when we talk about sociology or socio-legal research, then he has vast experience in dealing with these, you can say, intersections. So let me talk about briefly about this research design, why it is so important. It is important because when you start research, you must be able to identify what are the various integers which are very much important in conducting the research. If you miss any dot, your research will be disrupted. It will not attain the ultimate objective which you frame for your research. So you need to know how to design your research, how to apply your methodology, how you streamline various things like whatever research questions you have posed, how you can get the correct answer. Because it is popularly said that you can get only the correct answer if you raise the correct questions. So raising correct question is not a very simple task. You need to, examine the facts. You need to, make investigations, and you have to explore the research area in which you are working. Then and then you will be able to do that. So socio-legal research, when we talk about that, when you discuss the nature of a law itself, you will find that law is nothing but a social science. But even if we consider it as a social science, it has some peculiarities, like how you can determine that this is a legal approach and the other approaches, how they are different from the legal approach. So law is always open to interact with other disciplines, but while dealing with discipline in interdisciplinary research is very important. And that I highlighted time and again, that you must not be carried away by the other, you can say, disciplines while dealing with legal research. You must be accommodative, but you must be focused upon what kind of research you are dealing with. So this is very important in that sense, and the framework of research methods and techniques chosen by a researcher can be better dealt under this research design. It enables researchers to hone their research methods that are suitable for the subject matter they undertake, as well as it ensures that the evidence obtained by them effectively address the research problem. So having said that, this very topic, which Professor Ratan Singh is going to discuss, is very important for your PhD course as well as the LLM course too, while writing a dissertation. So having said that, without further ado, I will invite Professor Ratan Singh. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Sharif. Thank you very much. And I'm just a student of social sciences, a student of law, and reading a profile about me. I suppose that will take me down. So the most important thing is that I'm a student and always learning. And from the interaction, the words which you have spoken about research design, and even though from these words I have taken some points that at least once I'm to revise my book, I can put something as far as your connotation is concerned. So, Dr. Really, I'm thankful to Professor Usha Tandon, Professor Singh, Professor Kalpana Sharma, and Dr. Avender Kumar for giving me an opportunity to interact with the student and with the colleagues too also. As at outset, I told you that I'm still in the learning process. I'm a student of research and I'm teaching research methodology. I'm learning research methodology. So once this is a teaching and learning process, the most important thing where my students, my colleagues, sometimes they get little disturbed is about research design. Why research design is important? Because the whole of your study is based on this design. Designing is most important. If we are lacking somewhere, fail somewhere, or mistaking some aspects of the designing, probably the building will fall down. Our research will fall down. We will not be in a position to prove whatever we are intended to prove. So this is the most important aspect which need to be deliberated, which need to be discussed, which need to be pondered over among the students. Because many times I have seen whenever we ask to a student, very simple, a student maybe JRF, maybe qualify the test or UGC comes to us that please guide me that I'm to pursue my PhD or write on a dissertation. And he comes with some of the observations that I have 3-4 points in my mind over which I want to work. But exactly from where he has taken the points, from where he has taken the titles, from where he has taken the idea, he is not aware about just listening some news, sitting in somewhere in the corner, and maybe a hearsay aspect of the topic, and he tried to Jordan. Once he entered into this field of conducting the research, probably he failed to understand towards which direction I should go now. So there are many parameters. At every stage, we have to be very particular. Right, deciding the title to the chapterization plan, there are in between about 10 to 11 points which we need to take into consideration. And all these 10 to 11 points, these becomes a part of your research and design. This becomes the part of your synopsis. So friends, talking over research, we all know either it's a legal research or it's an interdisciplinary research, it's a research in the social sciences. This is certainly an academic activity. When we go ahead for an academic activity, which comprise defining and redefining the problems, which lead us towards the formulation of the hypothesis, collecting and organizing and evaluating the data, making deductions and reaching to the conclusion. So there are different stages. There are different parts of the research. So ultimately, when we conduct the research, this is an academic activity, and this academic activity, it leads us towards defining, redefining, collecting, recollecting, organizing, making deductions, reaching to the conclusions. Now, if this is an academic activity, so certainly in order to defining, formulating, reaching to the concluding, making an analysis, whether we need to follow a structured format, we need to follow a structured methodology, we need to follow structured parameters. These are some of the questions which we need to deliberate and which we definitely deliberate over this. Because there are different schools. Quite possible when a student interact with the supervisor may have a different bent of mind, and probably the student will do what the supervisors say. Maybe the mechanisms are totally different, but Whatever the supervisors say, accordingly, the student will do accordingly. Now, sometimes there is a conflict in between supervisor and the student to follow a particular type of standard of writing a synopsis, writing the research design, because the student is interacting with 100 other students and the supervisor may not be interacting with the 100 researchers. So sometimes conflict comes. So, but I feel is that while talking over the research design, we should have some framework in mind, which is very structured, which have a coherent link with the one topic to the second and second to the third and third to the fourth. That will be really reaching and taking us to conduct very effective research. As I told you, research is an academic activity which is leading us towards organizing, reorganizing, formulating the problem. So certainly this becomes a is art of scientific investigation. Research becomes an art of scientific investigation, and this while with the scientific investigation, we try to give the solution to the problem. It may be social problem, it may be legal problem. So what of the problem which we have identified, try to give an answer to the solution. So in order to identifying the problem, in order to fix up the title, and at the end of this, after making analysis and giving some suggestions and recommendations, we need to have a design. We need to make a design that how we are to take first step, when we are to take first step, which will be our first step, our second step, third step, fourth step, and accordingly. So each step have its own relevance. Each step have its own importance. So if we are not clear as far as design is concerned, as far as our synopsis is concerned, probably it will be just like moving in the sea without compass. So one structure need to be prepared. Like we say, it's a designing is a process to take the decisions beforehand. Designing is a process to prepare a master plan. It's a process to prepare a blueprint. I always discuss with the students that, for instance, if we are to construct a house, and there is always a preliminary discussion among the family members that what is our requirement. We try to jot on a piece of paper that these are the requirements. We require basement, we require first floor, we require second floor, we require these number of rooms, we require, I mean, this place for this place for your meditation, this place for. So it will we always have is something in our mind. We try to take this on a piece of paper and try to structure this. Whatever the structure is prepared, we take to the architect, and the architect give you proper planning accordingly. Very systematical planning he give to you, and accordingly we proceed further. So, for example, if we do not have such a blueprint, if we do not have such a structure, and we start constructing our house, and we ask to the contractor, you construct two rooms toward this side, one room toward this side, straight to this side. Ultimately, at the end of this, again we will be compelled to ask the contractor to demolish this, because that is not according to our expectations. Reason being why this is not according to our expectation, because we have not planned out. There was not a blueprint in our mind. There was not a system that what will be its total cost, how much time it will take, how much resources it will take. There are hundreds questions which we need to deliberate over. The same thing is as far as our research is concerned. So we need to structure, we need to plan out, we need to prepare a design. So that is why research design is a process which empowered us to pre-plan the things, to fix up the situations, that if situation like this comes into, how this situation is to happen, how this situation is to be tackled. I require this data, how this data is to be collected. This will be my universe. How I will find out a sample out of this universe, whether this sample is approachable to me or not. What are the difficulties in order to approach to this sample? If the data is collected, which technique, which method, which instrument to collect the data is to be followed? If I have followed this technique A or B or C, then how this data is to be tabulated? If this is tabulated, how this is to be presented? then which method of analysis of this data need to be followed? So there are thousand questions in the mind which we need to deliberate. So that is why generally we say when a student sit with the supervisor, spend about 6 months, even up to 1 year to prepare the research design. And once your research design is prepared, this blueprint is prepared, or this framework of the research is prepared, or this research design is prepared, then accordingly we can move ahead for conducting our research. If your research design is not prepared, we are lacking somewhere, there are some mistakes that probably we cannot conduct the uh, research or academic activity very effectively. So that is why I say research design is it's a framework, or it's a blueprint for the collecting the information which we need for the purpose of our problem which we have identified. So it gives you a structure, it gives you some boundaries, it gives you some limitation that within these boundaries you have to live. These are your limitations, these are your financial limitations, these are your academic limitations, these are your limitations of your administrative nature, these are your personal limitations. These are the limitations which bind you to go toward this side or not to go this side. Maybe due to the reasons of whether a researcher is a male or female or transgender, what are the issues? So it means beforehand you put the limitation. So these are some of the limitations which this research design is making your research as a very structured. So that is why I also say research design is a very structural document which limits your boundaries of the research activity, which enables you that these are your resources, these are your administrative resources, financial resources, academic resources, or digital resources, and within these resources you have. If you have not framed your resources, if these resources are not in your pocket, and you start working, so ultimately, whatever the little you have in your pocket, on the basis of this, you will conduct the research and you will not justify your research. So in order to justify research, you need to prepare a research design of such a nature that at least a task is given to 3 to 5 years that you have to complete this research. Within 3 to 5 years, how you are to complete, how you are to structure, what type of sample is there, what type of university is there, how to reach the sample. So these are some of the questions for this which you need to find out answers beforehand. Once you have answers beforehand, then only that will be a big campus in your hand that you can move in the sea. And certainly the direction toward which you have directed your campus, it will lead you toward this side. This campus will lead you toward this side. So research design is a plan of action. A plan of action for the collection and analysis of the data in a very efficient way, in a very economic way, in a very relevant way. And that is why research design is the heart and the soul of any research project. Why is a heart and soul of the research project? Because we use the word, if research design is prepared, it means half of your PhD, half of research is done. Because everything is to move accordingly. You have already compartmentalized your research problem. And once this is compartmentalized, then you can start up with chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3 accordingly. This is the data from where I will get the data. This is the resource. This is the body. This is the online set from where I'm to get the data. So meaning thereby, once you have compartmentalized everything, that for the purpose of my introduction, I will take the help of this. For the purpose of my historical evaluation of this topic, I will take the help of this. So accordingly, you have to lay down the boundaries. So these are my, this is my structure, this is my blueprint, and accordingly within this, I have to live into. So that is why research design is the heart and soul of any research project. And it broadened or broadly it outlined the areas, the jurisdiction, the parameters, the limitation, the restraints within which you have to live. So preparation of a research design is a process to deliberate, anticipated, directed towards the bringing the expected solutions under the control. So whatever your expectations, mean construction of your hypothesis, hypothesis. This is one of the most important aspects. Once you have developed an hypothesis, certainly your research design will take you towards your expectations like so and so. So friends, in order to take you towards the structure of the research design, let me talk about 10, 11 points, which are very, very much important as far as our research design is concerned. Now, firstly, I say, once we prepare the research design, reason being our title is decided by me with the help of the supervisor or the competent authorities has allowed me to, yes, you can go ahead for the PhD on this and this title. So whenever we have decided, no, I have an idea in my mind, but in order to construct the title, I have to be very choosy as far as the words are concerned. Which word, which sentence, which abbreviation, which pronunciation, which punctuation is to be followed as far as my title is concerned. So whenever, for the purpose of your research design, we have to take the title. The title is the most important part of the thesis. And I say this is the most read part of the thesis. And not most read. I say this is the first read, and most often it is the important thing which take you towards the whole of your research. I have 20 theses before me for evaluation with due regard. Out of the 20 theses, what I will see is that which first I should evaluate. Or maybe I have the 20 articles to read. I need to evaluate the which article first I should read. So certainly, first of all, I go to the title. And if the title is appealing, convincing, title is speaking within itself, it is brief, then probably I'll try to pick up that. This is very convincing, very attractive, it is conveying its own stories. It is precise. So then I will try to read that title, that article or that thesis. That's why I say, whenever you have to fix up the title for your project or for your research work, for your PhD or LLM, then this title should be as brief as possible. But it does not mean this too brief. It is not conveying its meaning. It is not conveying its exact intentions. No, it should be as brief as possible, as precise as possible, but it must convey the contents of your problem which you have identified. It must convey the aspect which you are trying to highlight. So meaning of brief or precise does not mean that we are bound with the only structure of 3 words, 4 words, 5 words, or maybe few words, but it is exactly not conveying whatever is decided. So this title of the thesis or research project, it should be brief as soon as possible, as much as possible. It should be precise, and it should project the scope of the problem in a generalized term. So when I say it must convey, mean the title should be informative. It must inform the problem which you have identified. It must conform to the specific to the study. And it should contain the key elements that advertise the whole of the content of the thesis. Now, for instance, the whole of the thesis you are trying to write on judicial review. The whole of all these 7, 8 chapters of your thesis, they are focusing on the judicial review. But this concept of the judicial review is not depicted in your title. So it means your title is depicting something else, but your chapters are depicting something else. So it means your title of the thesis, it should be brief, precise, but it must be informative. It must be specific to the study. It should contain the key element that really advertise the thesis, that advertise the research which you have conducted. And generally, we say this, it should be very unambiguous. Means once the words which you have used, the phrases sometimes which we use in the title, these should be very clear. It should not be ambiguous. It should be unambiguous. And generally, as far as the parameters which many scholars in the different handbooks of research methodology they have given, that it should not increase, it should not be more than 100 characters. Generally, these are the perceptions. So this should not be more than of 100 characters. So title should address the content of the thesis in a very simple way, which is easy to understand, which is attractive to the audience, and it must contain some keywords dealing with the contents of the research. When I say it should deal with the keywords. So friends, sometimes what happened? Students, they start using the abbreviations in the title. The students start using abbreviation in the title. Please do not use abbreviations. Only those abbreviations which are well recognized. Like for instance, we have UNO, we have ICJ, we have other well-established abbreviations. Only these abbreviations need to be used. Otherwise, sometimes of any act, there is no any abbreviation. For example, Indian Contract Act. I have never used this word like of ICA, Indian Contract Act. There is no an abbreviation of the Indian Contract Act. So whenever, if there is requirement to use any abbreviation, try to use only those abbreviations which are well acknowledged, well recognized in your field. Otherwise, probably if you use ICA, Indian Contract Act, nobody will understand exactly what you mean by ICA. So only recognize. So you need to focus on the title. That is the most important part as far as the research design is concerned. Now, second aspect of the research design towards which we are to move further now. Now, it is well established that you have structured your topic. You have decided a title. Title is approved. Now, the second step which you are to take for the construction of your research design is to lay down about the importance of the topic which you have chosen. If the topic is now, why your topic is important? Why the problem which you have identified is important? Why the research problem which you have identified is important, and how you have formulated, what its importance. So a brief mention of the importance of your research, topic of research is to be given. What prompted you? What has excited you to take this topic? What are the reasons for this? So here you need to give very brief structure of this, because that is the most important point, that if you have decided this topic, certainly the reader will read first page of your research, then understand that this is the importance of this. Certainly he will develop interest to go to the second page, third page. If you are not justifying to disclose your intention, why this topic is important, how far this topic is relevant as far as the field of socio-legal research is concerned. If you are not in a position to make clarification over this, then probably nobody will get interest into, and then nobody will like to read into. Because reason being, after first page or second page, maybe the reader may develop an interest that this is something, a very boring research, or there is no relevancy of as far as the research is concerned. So that, first 5-6 pages of your thesis, which becomes the part of your research design, these are important. So you need to find out what is the importance of this, why you have taken this topic, what are the motivational factors, what are the socio-political reasons that why you have taken. Nowadays, for example, many students are coming to me for writing LLM dissertation, and everybody is talking about, let's talk about Islam. This is some socio-religious problem. So maybe you are, or your students are coming while taking this latest socio-religious problem. For example, 10 students come to you to work on the same topic. Yes, 10 students can work, but their parameters are totally different. Their hypotheses are totally different. If their hypotheses are totally different, even 10 of students or 15 students on the same topic, even they can go for conducting the research. So meaning thereby, you need to give an important 1 or 2, 3 pages as far as your importance of your topic is concerned. Now, after that, the other aspect, the third parameter which you need to put into your research design is that you need to find out the historical development, from where this topic has come into. If I'm talking about judicial review, if I'm talking about curative petition, if I'm talking about your secular character of India with reference to hijab is concerned, so from where this problem has come into? Why today only this is becoming a problem? Otherwise, earlier this was never a problem. So you have to find out, you have to trace its roots. You have to find out its historical value. You have to find out from where this problem has merged into. Why in the different phases, if this problem is of about 80s, why not after the commencement of this constitution, why not the problem has been tackled? Or maybe after passing any specified statute, the problem which you are dealing, why this problem was not dealt right in 1978, for instance. So you have to find out historical background that historically this is relevant, this was not tackled, at the time it was not a problem, slowly, with the emergence of the society, with the movement of socio-political structure of the society, with the movement of different approaches of the secular character, now this has become a problem. So, meaning thereby, your research design must narrate something about its historical aspect, historical problem. Whatever is the nature of the problem, it may be socio-economic, political, cultural, commercial, but it's after importance, then you need to develop the historical problem. Now you have developed the historical problem. You have dealt with importance, then the historical aspect, then the third aspect over which you need to highlight is to identify and formulate, because you have identified, but now you need to formulate this problem. Formulation of the problem is very structured, very precise, very concise. You need to lay down just in few sentences exactly what is the problem. You need to lay down microscopic boundaries of the problem. The formulation process, that this problem is touching to society, this problem is a legal issue, this problem is a social issue, this problem is a political issue, this is a commercial issue. You have to go in deep. Microscopically, you need to develop the very small boundaries so that you should be very pinpointed. Microscopically, you can touch upon the solution of the problem. So after identification or after laying down the historical evolution or historical development, then you need to stress upon what is the exact problem, and this problem, how you have identified, and how this problem you have formulated. So formulation of the problem is most important aspect. Now, another issue is, this is a problem you have identified, you have formulated. Whether any literature is available over this, whether any research has been done over this, any book has been written over this. So it means if the research has already been done over this, if much of the articles has been already written over this, if many of the PhD theses or many of the reports the commission has submitted over this, then what is the fun? Why you are conducting a research on this? So meaning thereby now that most important step as far as the research design is concerned, what I feel is being a student of research, I see review of literature. Review of literature, now it all depends on how many books we need to review. Sometimes the student comes that should we review about 20 books, 30 books, 50 books? I say there is no any limitation. Because reason being, there may be one aspect, one topic on which no research has been done. Maybe that is the first time you are taking up this issue. Otherwise, none has taken up this issue and not a single book is there available in the market. Not a single article has been written. Maybe some of the article has been written, but they are not touching, they are not focused on the problem which you have identified. So it all depends. It's a variable aspect. If you talk about judicial review, I say there are hundreds of books you can write on. If you are writing on a curator petition, there are hundreds of the books you need to review. So it means you need to review the books. Reason being, you need to find out the topic on which you are working, whether anyone has written the work on this, if they have conducted the research, if they have written the books, if they have written the article, what is lacking in that research and which you want to fill up, which you want to cover up. So that is the basic purpose of review. Why we conduct the review? Conducting of review is that let me enable, let me find out the topic which I have identified. ABC has written, quite possible my senior teacher may have written on the same. If the same topic, same aspect, same character, same parameter they have followed, probably there is no logic for me to conduct my research on the same topic that will not be used anywhere. That will not be contribution. So my research, my PhD thesis, my research article, it should be a little contribution in the field of research. That is why we conduct the review of literature. That is another aspect of your research design. So research design without review of literature have no value. Research design without finding the research gap will mislead you, will take you nowhere as far as the research is concerned. So when the investigator is to conduct the research, he has to review the previous studies on the subject which you have taken and to critically examine that whether they have covered up my proposition, whether they have touched up the problem which I have taken, whether they have touched up the parameter on which I am to conduct the research, whether their approach is similar than that of mine, whether the hypothesis which they have followed, whether I have followed, I mean, whether the same hypothesis is there in their research and my research. So to get acquainted with the different meanings, to get acquainted with the interpretation of the different principles, A scholar has interpreted the principle in different connotations. B scholar have interpreted the same principle within its own socio-political environment and cultural environment. I'm interpreting in a different aspect. My approach is totally different. So it means I am in a position now to say, maybe the topic is same, maybe the parameters are same, maybe the methodology is the same, maybe the chapterization plan is same, but I have a different version. I have a different hypothesis. I have a different perception, and I will take this topic from my own perception because my surrounding circumstances are different than the circumstances in Delhi. My socio-economic circumstances, as far as Chandigarh is concerned, they are different as compared to other metropolitan area. So it means whenever the research is to be conducted, it is not so that on the same topic we cannot, I mean, two research cannot be conducted or three research or three theses cannot be written. It can be written, but we have to find out the different parameters. We have to find out the different hypotheses. We have to find out my own perception, and I'm taking my own perception. I'm moving ahead. So that is why we review the literature to get acquainted, different interpretations, different conclusions, different suggestions, different parameters while conducting and while formulating the research design. So what is different in my research? That I have to find. So once I review literature, maybe I have reviewed 30 books, 35 books, I've reviewed about 50 articles also. So we all understand that we do review many articles on the internet, newspapers, books, conferences, proceedings, articles in journals, magazines, so and so. So after review, what I feel is that the topic which I have identified, that is totally different. Even though 1,000 people has conducted the research, but on the same topic, 1,000 people has conducted the research, but my aspect, my microscopic point which I have taken up, this is totally different. None of these 1,000 people have touched this issue on this parameter, and I'm touching this on this parameter. So that is why my research is different, and this is the gap which is left in the previous research, and now I'm trying to bridge this gap. So this gap is a question, or research gap is a question, or it's a problem that has to be answered on the basis of the existing literature, on the basis of the research, the existing research which has been conducted. So until and unless I do not find out a research gap, there is no purpose of mine to move further. So after review of literature, conducting the research gap, then I need to find out the next point as far as my research design is concerned about scope of the investigation. Because if I have not limited myself as far as the scope of the investigation is concerned, because every issue have its different dimensions. Every issue have, every problem which is identified have its different dimensions. It may have a social, it may have economic, it may have commercial, it may have political, it may have biological, it may have scientific. But I have to take up one, I may have to take maybe two, I may have to take maybe three interdisciplinary, but I have to lay down the boundaries. I have to lay down the scope, that exactly what is the scope of this investigation. It all depends on the many factors. Like my scope of my study depends on the time, it depends on money, it all depends on the manpower which is available to me. It is all, it depends on the data which I have. It all depends on the accessibility of this data. It all depends on the approach to the respondents. It all depends on my the method which I follow to select my sample. So it means when you have to lay down the scope of the investigation, there are many points which you need to take into consideration. Then only you can build up, you can construct the scope of your investigation. For instance, I told you that we need to find out time restraint. We need to find out respondents. We need to find out about economic resources. We need to find out your administrative access. You need to find out availability of your literature. You need to find out the availability of the data which is available in many commissions and other bodies like of secondary data. So only if you have to fix up the scope of your investigation, scope of the investigation can be fixed up only and only while if these are the parameters you have in your mind, then only we need to construct the scope. Then after the scope, the whole of the research, which is based on the most important point, and that is about objectives of your study. Now, very interesting. I was evaluating one of the PhD thesis with due regard. The objectives which was laid down in the research, probably it was 17 to 20 objectives the scholar has laid on. And I fail to understand that how he will be or she will be in a position to achieve these 20 objectives or 15 objectives. Once we say the research may be or should be very microscopic. The true research which we conduct is, this is just not measured in the papers or number of pages. This is measured with the content and the data and the analysis of the data. That's it. But if you lay down about 18 or 20 objectives, probably we will lose somewhere. We will not be in a position to find out the objective. So what precisely I feel is the number of objectives should be the same as you have number of chapters. If, for example, you have 7 chapters, try to construct about 7 objectives. Maximum you can go ahead with one more 8 objectives, but do not go a long list of objectives. So objectives which are within the scope of the investigators, only these objectives, or you should fix up only these objectives. If you are conducting a research and you have taken a sample as far as your own district is concerned, you have taken a sample few villages from your district, but you have laid down the objectives which are going across your boundaries, across your physical boundaries, across your financial boundaries. So objectives should be within the scope of your research, and it will spell out in the form of a statement what to do and what not to do. My objective is to find out historical development of this problem. My objective is to compare this problem with American system. My objective is to see and make an analysis of the existing laws. My objective is to find out the jurisprudential norms on this and this issue. So it means you need to lay down very few objectives. So that is, I say, the crux of the research design. If we have not laid down the objectives of study, or the objectives are vague, if objectives are misleading, if objectives are too lengthy, still that at the end of the day of our research, it will be misleading. We will not be contributing much to the society or to the academia. So that is why I say objectives must be very, very small, brief, objective, within your control, within your administrative feasibility or financial feasibility. Now, after this objectives, sometimes uh, on some platforms, there is a discussion that if you have laid down the objectives, then you need not to write down about the research questions. I'm not talking about research questionnaire, I'm talking about research questions. So after the objective, then the next point, which is again an important, that is research question. Why you have taken up this proposition? You have taken up a proposition that there are some questions in your mind. What is the question in your mind? My question in your mind is this law is not sufficient enough to solve this problem? Is there any judicial precedents to solve this problem? My next question may be in my mind that why the society is creating a hustle and tussle over this issue. My third question may be, is not there any legislative policy or the legislative mechanism to solve this issue? So it means I have some questions in my mind. So my design must specifically provide the research questions. It may be 5 research questions, it may be 10 research questions. Again, I'll go try to correlate objective research question and the chapterization plan. There should be consistency, correlation in between three. If objectives are different, your research question speaks some different tune, and your chapters are beating different drums, so probably we will not be in a position to contribute and to come to the concluding remark and to give our observation. We need to be in line with the objectives, research questions, and then accordingly about your chapterization plan. So now I have research question in my mind. These may be legal, these may be social, these may be economic, these may be on the problem which I have identified. My these research questions are only and only focusing on this. So we have to be, I mean, not only 3 points, which I said, objective, research question, and chapterization plan. No. Apart from this, if you start from number 1, I said your title of your thesis. Then I say importance of your research problem. I said historical background. I say the problem for importance, review, research gap, meaning thereby all the points, which are about 10 points, these should be in sequence. These should be in sequence, reason being, then only we will be in a position to understand our true research. We will be in a position to give the sound findings. Otherwise, probably we will be out of the track. So research question is again a very much important aspect as far as our research design is concerned. Now, after this, there is another issue as far as the hypothesis is concerned. No, friends, without the hypothesis, again, we will not be, because something must be in their mind. When I'm taking any problem, I have identified any problem. So about this problem, some perceptions are there in my mind. Now, for example, generally, in order to understand, I can give another example as far as the hypothesis is concerned. And most of the time, I gave an example to my student while narrating the hypothesis. How come this is important? Because for one proposition, for one problem which I have identified, there may be 10 hypotheses on this. No, my problem is I always say this is a torch, and why this torch is not working, why this is not switching on. If I'm switching on, this is not working. So I asked to one of my students, what is the reason? And his hypothesis, maybe its battery is not charged. This is the one hypothesis. That is why it's not working. The second student say it's a negative and positive wires cable. These are not connected properly. This is second hypothesis. The third hypothesis, that it's a switch which is on and off switch. It's not working properly. This may be third hypothesis. The fourth hypothesis is say it's a top part is not tightened properly. This may be another hypothesis. Another hypothesis is its bulb may be fused. So there are, I say, maybe 10 hypotheses on the same proposition. The proposition is this is not working, this battery is not working. So accordingly, this is A hypothesis, B hypothesis, C hypothesis. Similarly, for one proposition, there may be different hypotheses as far as due to the cultural conditions, due to the social conditions, due to the economic conditions, due to the different parameters in your own area. You may have different hypotheses as sitting in Delhi and as compared to sitting to me in the rural area. So similarly, if as far as the torch is concerned, what I did is I changed the battery and now still it is not working. It means this hypothesis is disproved. Again, I changed the switch of on and off. Now still it is not working. So it means again this hypothesis again disproved. Again, I have changed the bulb also. Still it is not working. It means this hypothesis also disproved. Now I have tightened the upper part. Now this is working. So it means this hypothesis is proved. So meaning thereby that whenever we take any proposition as far as the research is concerned, when we say as far as the problem is concerned, appointment of judges in the High Court and the Supreme Court is studied with special reference to NJAC. For example, appointment of judges of the High Court and the Supreme Court is studied with special reference to NJAC. My hypothesis may be different as far as the presumption which is given that if NJAC comes into, this will be against the independence of judiciary. This will be against the principle of natural justice, I mean judiciary principle of your basic structure. But I have a different opinion. I say this will not be against the principle of basic structure. Rather, this will strengthen the principle of basic structure. I have different proposition. A judge may have different proposition. A social worker have a different proposition. So similarly, friends, the most important part as far as the research design is concerned, what I feel is the hypothesis. But again, the hypothesis, do we mean that when we are to construct a hypothesis, because reason we have noticing that the student, most of the time student gave number 1 hypothesis, number 2 hypothesis, number 3 hypothesis, number 4 hypothesis, even though. So with due regard, there may be difference of opinion, but my opinion is whenever we are to give a hypothesis, that is to be a very small, brief, tentative statement. As brief as the hypothesis is, the so brief problem we will identify and we will give the solution. We will give the recommendations. If your hypothesis is such a large, such a wide, such a vague, such a zigzag, touching to many parameters, probably we will not be in a position to prove or disprove. So then we will not be in a position to interpret this proposition in a very proper way. So friends, formulation of the hypothesis is most important. That is another, again, important point as far as research design is concerned. No other aspect, again, without which we cannot move ahead. Methodology. Which methodology we need to follow? Are we, whether my study is analytical study, because methodology I can only follow on the basis of type of my research. Whether my research is a doctrinal research, it's empirical research, it's a descriptive research, it's a historical research, it's analytical research, it's evolutionary research, it's a casual research. It all depends on the nature of research. If my nature of research is empirical, certainly my methodology will be different. If my nature of research is doctrinal, certainly then this is based on the documents. Doctrinal research is based on the documents, which is based on secondary document, which is based on the primary document, which is based on the books, which is based on other literature. But if this is based on empirical, then have to be very particular. Have to be very clear that what is my universe. Out of this universe, what will be my sample? Which technique, which methodology I will follow in order to choose my sample. And in order to collect the data from this sample, which tool I will follow? I will follow a case study method, questionnaire method. I will follow a interview method, observational method, which method I follow. So meaning thereby you have to be very, very clear. I have to be very specific. This state, like Delhi will be my universe. Out of Delhi, these three districts I will take as per a sample. Out of three districts, again, I will divide into the clusters. Out of three districts, I will take two clusters from each district. So I mean, you have to be very, very clear as far as your methodology is concerned, about the tools, about presentation, about tabulation, about analysis, about presentation. So you have to, because that is a method of your whole of the research. So the best research design is only that design which depicts itself as far as methodology is concerned. I mean, following the sample, taking the sample, how the sample is to be taken. We all understand, because if I'm to speak on the sample, probably we can talk, we can speak hours and hours on the sample. But here, being talking on the research design and giving a stress as far as methodology is concerned, my humble submission that we need to be very focused. What is the nature of my research? Nature of my research is analytical, doctrinal, descriptive, casual, and explanatory. Then I have to decide on the basis of the nature of research. I decide this is my empirical. In the empirical again, what is universe, what is sample, how sample is to be taken, which sample is to be taken, whether this sample is a representable representation to the whole of the universe. All the things I have to taken into consideration, and then I can proceed further. So as far as the sample is concerned, how this is to be interpreted, how this is to be verified, how the concluding remark is to be given, that's a totally another chapter which need to be discussed. Now, the last point, as far as our research design is concerned, probably that comes with your chapterization plan. As I told you that when we fix up on the chapterization plan, let's not have fixed chapters like 8 chapters or even 10 chapters, 12 chapters. Can we imagine that sometime we evaluate and the number of chapters are 13, 15? So I don't know whether this is just a compilation, that in one chapter they have given the introduction and that is again compiled. In the historical background about the second chapter, they have again compiled. Third chapter, they have given the law, it is again compiled. Fourth chapter, they have given about other international parameters, again this is compiled. So if you are giving about 12 chapters or 13 chapters, so it means ultimately 12 chapters are compiled in one chapter, just 2 pages. You are trying to make an analysis of this. So probably that research will not be really a great contribution as far as the academic for us are concerned. So what I feel is that when we are to lay down the chapterization plan, we need to be very focused, and we need to be focused with reference to the title of your research, with reference to the problem which you have identified, with reference to the objective which you have laid down, with reference to the research question you have, with reference to the hypothesis. Then accordingly, you need to concentrate on the chapters. And friends, try to fix up what I mean. There will be disagreements also, difference of opinions are there, because a lot of scholars are there who are dealing with the research. What I feel is it should be maximum 6 to 8 chapters. It all depends on, but 6 to 8 chapters. It may be 5 to 8 chapters. But if you take about more than 8 chapters, I may be wrong as far as my perception or my conviction, but that will not lead us towards a very good research. 5 to 8 chapters are sufficient. But in the research design, because it is the design only which you submit to the competent authorities, and the competent authorities are to read your design and then according to allow you to proceed for the research. So how to convince the competent authorities to select my research design if all the parameters you have laid down, and in the chapterization plan you have find out about 6 chapters, do write down in a very convincing way what is your first chapter, what you will try to put into the first chapter, what you will try to put in your second chapter, third chapter, fourth, fifth, sixth accordingly. And then, because being I'm evaluator of your research design, and I have just only this opportunity, that Mean reading one paragraph or one page as far as your first chapter is concerned, or one paragraph or one page on your second chapter. On the basis of this synopsis of 30 pages, 35 pages, I will be convincing, or I may not convince, to allow you to conduct your research in this field. Because if the parameters which we are sharing, the points which I'm sharing, that's starting from your title, about importance, about historical development, about your formulation of the problem, about review, about research gap, about your scope, about your objectives, about research questions, about your hypothesis, about methodology, about chapterization plan. If all these are in sequence, if these 10 points are in sequence, and every point is touching to another, every point is speaking the story of the previous. I mean, you may read, you may take objectives so the examiner can understand what exactly you want to say. I just read only one paragraph of your hypothesis, I will be in a position to understand exactly what topic you are taking for your research. I'm just reading your importance of one page which you have written. On the basis of the importance, I can understand exactly what you have visualized. What do you feel like to write on? So it means these are the things which you need to take into consideration as far as other aspect of our research is concerned. When we talk about what should be the characters of a good research design, and in the last statement, in the very precisely, I always say it should be very flexible. It should be doesn't mean that anytime you can change it. It should be flexible. It should be efficient. It should be very economic. It should be having minimized biases, and it should be reliable, and there should be very less errors, and it must give maximum information so that accordingly you can construct your approach on. Now, once research design is submitted, it is approved also. Now, competent authorities has allowed you, go ahead with this. Your research design is approved. You go ahead to conduct your research. No, in between, because research is a long process, it may take 3 years, 4 years. In between, the aspect which you have taken, it's totally changed. Over this, the hypothesis was that over this issue, there is no law, and you are trying to give the suggestion that there should be a law, the law should be of this nature. No, in between, what happened? The government has come out, the legislature has come out with a law. The law has been passed. Now you are a bit confused now. That this is the suggestion which I was planning to give regarding the law. Now the law has come into. Now the question is whether you can change your research design in between. Don't get worried over this. You can continue with your research. You can continue with your research on the same topic, same parameters, same aspect, same structure. But yes, as far as the hypothesis is concerned, you can take a little twist, you can take a little bend with the proposition, like this may happen, this may not happen. So it means this is little flexible. Research design is always little flexible, that during the course of nature, during the course of your study, if something's happened, for example, earlier, you have opted the respondents, and your respondents were based on some one cluster. Now, during the course of your research, that cluster is not allowed to be visited by any person. No, you cannot visit that cluster. No, you cannot go to the respondent. So it means you have to change. So that is why whenever we prepare the research design, we always try to prepare in a such flexibility that during the course of our process of research, if there is need to change, then probably we can change. But change does not mean that the total change means you have to resubmit, you have to present before the competent authorities. Competent authorities again may allow you. So that should not be a change. Change means a little change which is based on the circumstances, which is based on your respondents, which is based on new legislations, which is based on change in socio-cultural political aspects. then accordingly there may be little change. So that is why we always say research design can never be rigid, can never be tight, can never be so strict. It is flexible. It is so flexible that we can little bring changes into this. So with these words, I close this my lecture. And if something is there to talk and queries are there, then please most welcome, because again I have another class.
Thank you so much.
Sir,
Yes, sir.
sir, I
Just a
have a
minute, just a
question.
minute, just a minute. Please. Yeah. So first of all, let me thank Professor Ratan for this comprehensive talk, which covers all the integers of research design. And particularly, I must raise something from his lecture that is very important. The first thing is, unless and until you know the topic, the contours of your topic, you never explain your research. So it is very, very important aspect which you need to know. The other thing is, which we usually miss, is literature review. We take it very casually. We try to, just sum up something by just gathering few facts and from some internet material, and we write it like it is a literature review. It's not like that. If you are doing, or you are investing the substantial time in making literature review, then it will be very helpful in designing your research. So, as Professor Ratan has pointed out, that you need to find out the research gaps. So how can you find out? Comprehensive literature review. So that is missing sometimes, and that distort the whole framework of your research. So kindly note that. And next, what he said is the scope of your research with the reality check, that in terms of resources, in terms of time, what is the limitation? You must be very honest about that. And the next thing which he highlighted is the objectives, which you need to frame with all the, you can say, sincerity, because these objectives you are going to get by your whole research. So that is very important. While doing that, and after doing that, research questions, as he said, that gives a concrete idea that what were those gaps which you were pondering upon. And you are framing that in the form of research questions that you need to respond in your thesis in the chapters, as he said. And he rightly pointed out that your objectives must be concise in the sense they may be not in like 15, 16 in numbers. They must be very well articulated based on your, you can say, chapters. And based on those research questions, you can frame your chapters also. And research methodology, which people write within two sentences, 3 sentences, we see, Professor Ratan will also agree with me. So many a times they do that, like this is a kind of formality, you just write it. So you have to elaborate upon the research pathway, that how you proceed. As he said, that what kind of methodology you are using, and in that very methodology, what kind of data you are getting, what kind of questionnaire you are preparing, or what kind of resource you are relying upon by conducting that very research. Then, chapterization of plan must be consistent. Consistency must be there. They must not be disjoint. So in that way, there must be a consistent flow in your research, which leads to certain answers. So you have to look into that very process properly. And one thing I must highlight in this very regard, that you need to be very clear that micro research, what does it mean? We all are doing micro research. The problem with Indian legal research is that we are very descriptive. So we need to be very clear that we must be specific. Otherwise, it will be just an ambiguous kind of stuff which is being, you are producing, and it is being just floating all around. So you need to pinpoint what is the issue and what issue you are addressing, and what kind of suggestions you are putting, what value you are adding to the existing literature. So in that way, I think Professor Ratan's lecture is very, very, you can say, elaborative, comprehensive, and eye-opening for all of you, and it will be helpful for you to proceed further. Now I'm inviting questions from the audience. You must be very specific, because it will be a little, you can say, difficult to take the questions. So you can ask by, raising your hand, or you can just ask anyway. So please.
Sir, my question, sir.
First, identify
Yes.
yourself. Who are you?
Sir, I'm Sanjukta Kabasi, and
Okay.
I'm pursuing my LLM 2 years from Delhi University.
Okay.
Sir, sir, my question is for Professor Ratan Singh. I just wanted to ask him that he actually gave a format regarding the research design, and he also explained about something called chapterization plan. So, suppose, sir, if I'm writing uh, report on a survey, should I incorporate this chapterization plan also in that? So this is my first question. And sir, also I need to ask, like he also explained many things like the mandatory requirement that should be there in a research share design. So I just wanted to ask, wouldn't
Your
he,
voice is cracking, please.
sir, am I audible, sir?
Yeah, you're a little audible, but in between is cracking, please.
Okay.
Can you
If
just
I'm
repeat your
audible,
question? Repeat your question.
sir, what I'm just trying to ask you, like Professor Ratan Singh has explained something called chapterization plan in research design. So I wanted to ask, like, suppose if I'm writing a report on a survey, which is actually an empirical work, so should I incorporate the chapterization plan in my survey report also? This is my first question, sir.
Okay. Let me tell you, as far as the survey report is concerned. No, just see, maybe you have taken up any aspect to conduct the survey, and accordingly, certainly you need to give findings. So I mean that is why I'm conducting a survey. Survey maybe, for example, you have taken any of a socio-cultural issue, and for this, in order to understand, you have conducted a survey, and for this you have collected the data. No, for this, once you will present the data, certainly you have to be very systematic. Then you have to classify, at least in probably what I feel is you need to classify maybe in 3 or 4 portions. So you will first introduce the why, on what aspect I'm conducting a survey for this. What is the area which you have touched upon, why and who has motivated you. Second, what is the existing problem, why you are conducting the survey. And thirdly, survey is conducted, that this is the data which I have found out from the survey. And the fourth is what exactly this problem over which you have conducted the survey, this problem can be solved. What solution you will give, what observation you will give, what recommendation you will give. So what I feel is, being a student of, it is better, in order to give one assignment of 50 pages, instead of giving one assignment of 50 pages, you try to classify this. You may classify in chapters or in units or whatever is, but you need to classify. I think that will be good presentation.
Okay, sir, I understood, sir. Actually, sir, I've already prepared the survey report, but my actually confusion was regarding the chapterization plan. So, because I have also done my synopsis, I have classified the topics in the chapter. So that is the reason why I was in a little bit of
That's
confusion
good.
whether
That's
I
so
should.
you must put in the chapters.
Okay, sir.
Next question. Any other question? Yeah, there's one.
Yeah, this is a question, as far as is it mandatory to have a hypothesis and explanatory. Friends, I told you earlier that there are various schools. One school believe like there is no need for a hypothesis. But being a student of interdisciplinary research, what I feel is, either the research is of any nature, either it is a descriptive, explanatory, analytical, hypothesis must be there, because hypothesis give you a vision that what exactly you feel, and whatever you feel on the basis of the data which you are collecting, whether you are right or wrong. I mean, your belief does not mean that this is your personal belief, just you are sleeping and suddenly you woke up and this belief came into. You develop your hypothesis on the basis of interacting with your friends, by meeting the members of the society, by meeting the respondents, then you develop the hypothesis. And what I feel is, this is not your personal hypothesis, this is a hypothesis of a group of people. When this is of a group of people, so it means whatever is the nature of the study, it should be depicted by way of hypothesis. It may be by way of, if your research is descriptive, analytical, or explanatory, what I feel is, yes, hypothesis should be there. It should be rather mandatory.
Yes. Any other question?
Sir, last question, sir.
You are again?
Uh,
Okay.
can I ask, sir?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, sure, please.
Sir, actually, you said definitely. Sorry, you actually explained so many important things that need to be mentioned in the research design. Sir, can I skip any one of this? Like, if I can.
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question, please? I'm sorry. There is
She's
a
asking.
problem of.
She's asking that you have mentioned many things in your lecture, many steps. So can she skip some of?
Okay. So what I feel is, just see, this is a thread where each and every aspect is important. So what I feel is these are the most important tablets as far as your problem which you have identified. I think you need not to miss anyone. It all are mandatory.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Another question is, what would be the scope of
Doctoral research. Friends, no doubt in these days we are moving towards the empirical research, and certainly as if I'm to make a comparison in between the doctoral and empirical, we definitely give the preference to the empirical, but it does not mean that doctoral research have no scope. There are many issues which we can only solve by the methods which the document which we have. For instance, we are talking about, I give you an instance, we are talking about the approach of judiciary towards human rights, right? Or maybe towards environment, let it be like approach of judiciary towards environment, how far judiciary is sensitive towards environment. Then what I'll do is, because reason me, I need not to conduct empirical research. What I'll do is, I will try to find out the judgment right from 1950 to 60. There is a one group of judgments, 60 to 70, the second group of judgments, 70 to 80, 90, and accordingly. Then I will see in all the judgments of the first 10 years, second 10 year, third 10 year, fourth 10 year, then accordingly try to find out what was the judiciary's approach toward environment in the first 10 years, second 10 year, and you will find out there was a time when the judiciary was totally a green judiciary. You will find out a time, and then you can give your observation that yes, the judiciary is doing good as far as the environment is concerned. So, doctoral research is important once it is based on the document. There are many documents, it may be judicial document. No, for example, you are conducting a research as far as many legislations are concerned. We all understand many legislations are redundant. There is no, sometimes there are some legislation which has not come into force from the last years and years. No, you can conduct a doctoral research and you can advise, suggest, give your observation that the legislation need to be repeated. So that's a doctoral research, and that will be a great contribution as far as the field of law is concerned. So doctoral research has good scope. Differences of synopsis and research design. Now, just see when you are, your topic is approved, and after that, the university will ask you to submit your synopsis. Ultimately, synopsis and the research design is the same thing. Now, academically, as far as your calendar is concerned, university calendar is concerned, it provides about synopsis. But in some of the universities, it provides about research design. But what I feel is research design is a preliminary stage, which you have to prepare sitting along with your supervisor. And once everything is approved, once you are to submit the same thing to the university, that will be your synopsis. So there is no difference. It is just on the table and off the table. Whether studies empirical qualitative study considered inferior to any of the contests, I say no study is inferior or superior. All the research, either it's a qualitative, it's a quantitative, it's a doctrinal, it's empirical, all is very good. It all depends. It should be a great contribution in the existing field.
Okay.
I think these are questions, sir.
Okay, so I will now invite Dr. Kalpana Sharma for vote of thanks. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. So good afternoon, everyone present here for this webinar, and our distinguished speaker, Professor Ratan Singh, sir. I extend my gratitude to you, sir, to take out your time from your busy schedule. I know that you are very occupied with different assignments in your university. So thank you so very much to grace the event, to give your consent and make your presence in this webinar, sir. Thank you so very much for inspiring and encouraging all of us, including our students, with your very well-structured lecture on this research design, sir. And then I would also like to extend my thanks to our dean and our head of the Department Faculty of Law, Dr. Usha Tandon ma'am. She providing us immense support to make this webinar successful. And I also want to extend my gratitude to director of this program, of this webinar, Dr. Singh sir. He all the time is very motivated kind of a person, and he always give us his support to organize such kind of events. And I would also like to thank all the participants over here, the students, including the faculty. Thank you so very much to be here and to make this webinar successful. And I would also like to thank so far the coordinator of this webinar on the virtual platform, Dr. JP Meena sir. So he's the one who is handling all the things on the virtual platform. Thank you so very much, sir. And I'm very much sure that all of us will get benefited from this webinar. And yesterday I request all the students of LLM that please come and join this webinar, because they have one assignment in a legal research paper. They're supposed to give an assignment of a research design. I'm sure all of you will get benefited from this webinar. So thank you so very much, sir. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Thanks to Professor Usha Tandon, Professor Singh, Dr. Kalpana, and Dr. Ravindra. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity, and I hope this academic interaction will continue, and it's a give and take. So another opportunity, I'll definitely come to see you. Thank you very much. God bless to all.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And with this, I'm just ending this. And thank you so much.